All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the November edition of the High Performance Homes Teams. I'm Steve Mickley, Executive Director of AIBD, and I have who are probably the most influential designers that I know on screen right now. And Larry, you hit on this before we got started, and that was why talking about storm rooms is an important issue right now. And it's exactly what was on the forefront of my mind. So go ahead and repeat what it was that you were saying before we started the recording.
Oh, well, I think it's certainly a great subject to cover at the moment with all the um, devastation with hurricanes that have hit the Florida and the entire and the East Coast, and in certainly in my area in Texas, which has always been it's got the name of Tornado Alley, and so there are a lot of companies that deal with these shelters, and it is not something that is new to me, but it's something that is very pertinent, and I think that it's very important that people know um, what zone they're in, and when they need to really approach this and put it above ground or below ground, whatever the case may be. So I'm happy to be here and contribute.
Well, thanks. It's great to have you here. And you're absolutely right. I had during Milton, it was a category 5 storm at the time. It was still offshore, I think 100 miles. And there was a feeder band that came through the evening before it made landfall that caused, I think it was 125 tornado warnings in Florida with 47 tornadoes touching ground. There was one that began about a half to 3/4 miles north of my house, due north, hit ground, and then went northeast away from me. It was an F3. No, maybe F2, but it was strong enough to close down US Highway 1. It took all the concrete power poles with it. It hit a housing development before it got to US 1. Then it hit a condominium development that was a series of like 2-story, 8 or 10 unit buildings. That apparently it was kind of like coming off ground, maybe because it blew out all the windows, took the tiles off the roof, but the structure was intact. And then it landed back down on the ground after that community into a multi-million-dollar housing development that's been around for ages. Some of which might have been homes I designed. I've done homes in that community and flattened a street of houses. And then, of course, it just wouldn't have been a tornado if it wouldn't have ended with a trailer park. So,
Yeah.
And that was just one of 47 in Florida that within hours. It was, I have experienced 60 years of hurricanes in Florida, one in Maryland, actually. And so this is probably the most horrific event I've seen that far in advance of a hurricane. I know Hurricane Andrew was a category 5 when it hit Florida and had a number of tornadoes it was just seemed like one giant tornado. But in this case here, it was 47 individual ones that stretched from South Florida all the way to North Central Florida. So it got me thinking. I have never designed a storm room. Now, the 2-story house we live in now, we have a powder room under the stairs. That's just a regular, framed and drywalled room. The last house that I had, we designed it with a powder room under the stairs. This time we gave a little bit of thought to it being a storm room, but still mostly just framing and drywall. Although I don't know how my house today is constructed, but the house that the last 2-story I had, the floor system was not attached to the ceiling of the powder room. So that's my experience. Have any of you designed? I meant to set up a poll so that we could find out from the audience too, but how many people have designed storm rooms, and how does that process work? Larry?
Go ahead, Larry.
I've never designed a storm room, but I have horses, and so have in other equestrian facilities, I've made them. We care more. Crazy horse people care more about the horse than themselves. So I've made those super fortified. I also live in Hurricane Alley and had the hurricane that came through. Whatever Steve gets, then I get the outer bands as it's hitting him. And I'm in Wilmington, near Wilmington, North Carolina. But like I've never thought about fortifying. And then I've never thought about a storm room for me, because I always thought of them for tornadoes and underground, and that's the last place I want to be with flooding. So this will be really interesting to get everybody's input of how do you, like a piling house, how would you build, how would you, where would you put it? What would you do? How? Would you build it like a elevator shaft? Like we all probably study the hurricane shots on the Weather Channel to see which houses, made it through and which didn't. And there's one in Florida with this last ones that, you guys got hit pretty good this year. That one yellow house that was on pilings, and the pilings weren't even in the ground more than 3 feet. And it had just been inspected. So I was like, dang. So this will be interesting. I've done it, like I said, for horse facilities to protect that, high level of expensive horses, but never for a piling house or in our area where flood and hurricanes are an issue. I'm flooding. My property floods, and I'm in hurricane area. Tornado area, and I have horses.
So what did you do to super fortify the housing for the horses?
CMU block, built it like a shaft for a elevator. These people had gobs of money. Built it like the shaft for a 3 or 4 stop elevator in a commercial building, like a apartment, but it was the whole facility. And then they did a all span structure where that you could lock down all, when Steve was talking about the windows blowing out, you could lock down all of those areas that create the negative and the positive pressure that blow out everything. And then
Larry?
Areas.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'll go on. So I'll just be quiet. Go ahead.
Larry, you were going to, you had something on your mind.
Oh, well, most of the structures have been really basements, and that doesn't qualify 100%, because most of them don't have a door going into the basement. So if you're going to actually have a safe room in your home, there were several different things that you needed to do, and that was one thing that I found interesting was to not have any portion of the house touch it. Not even the slab. The slab was independent, and all the walls around it that were part of the home, they never touched it, because they said that would destroy the integrity of the safe room. And so as I studied further, that turned out to making some real sense. So I mean, if you put your storm room on the same floor system that your house was on, and the house gets taken away, then obviously your safe room does too. So having it as an independent structure was important. And you can
How independent? Like how far away? And then you have to think about root mass too, right? When trees fall. But like how far away is not attached?
6 inches.
Okay. So it's like a breakaway stair in our area, breakaway stair and all.
Yes, one of that's the slab can abut it, but the frame can't touch it. That was that was the most extreme that I found. But you were talking right there where you have high waters and all of that. That isn't applicable in the areas that I'm in. And again, this goes back. Everything needs to be designed for the area of the United States it's in. The whole everything that has to do with safe rooms that with regard to wind really has a line starting at the Continental Divide and going east. Anything west of that, no, you don't need to ever even consider it. There's not going to be a hurricane. There's not going to be a tornado. So anything from the Rockies east is it. This was I should have had this on a screen. I don't know if that's visible to you or not.
Yeah, that's good right there.
Okay, so you see the bottom part. That's all hurricane. The red portion is severe tornado. So the breakaway that I was talking about. Maybe you can see where the slab is not even a part of it.
What's the transition from the slabs? What's the?
I think your transition from the slab from the storm room is just a cold joint. I don't know if it has to be separated by anything.
Okay.
I've done a couple of you have to describe what the storm room is going to do. If it's to protect someone from tornadoes or hurricanes, it's a little bit different. There's usually tornadoes included in hurricanes.
Oh yeah.
In those events anyway. And then you have not only the forces of the wind and the debris flying around, but then you have the forces of the debris falling. So you have to protect that roof or the ceiling of that room. And there's a number of ways to do that. And then you have to also, there's a whole lot of things you can include and think about how long the people might be in that room. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be in that room for an hour? Or do you consider that they might be in that room for days? Do you put electric and water and sewer?
Yeah.
The other part of it too is there were some guidelines, and the last ones I had were actually from a while ago, 99, that a storm room is basically a temporary shelter. It's not some place to set up housekeeping. So the size of the room was rather limited by what guidelines FEMA had put out. And there was this was the book that was out from FEMA. Like I said, this was 99. And there's a couple of different assemblies you could use, and it could be frame with multiple layers of sheathing on it, inside and out, and on the ceiling. The last real storm room I did was for a paraplegic, and the house was on a slab. And I'm in Ohio, so there's that map that Larry held out, which was all red. I have the floor plan and the section through that, and I'm not sure if I can pull that up on screen or not. I'll try to.
I have you all queued up. Go ahead and
Can you
There
see
you go.
that there?
Yeah.
Okay. Over to the right side, you can see a shelter closet. There's the fireplace, and then to the right of that, it's a shelter closet. What
Does
we
the
did-
fireplace help it?
No, it's independent of it.
Okay.
But what
It's not
we
a
did-
masonry fireplace.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
the house was it was a slab on grade. You notice all the bedrooms are on the same side of the house, but we needed a walk-in closet, and we wanted a storm room that they could get into quickly. So we actually did a dual use of a walk-in closet and a storm room. So the storm room is actually poured concrete walls with its own foundation, and then ceiling on it is wood ceiling with multiple layers, but other part of it is a steel sheet.
Oh.
And that way the family could gather into that room rather easily. Now, again, the door swings in because you figure debris is falling around, it's going to block the exiting of the door. See if I can get the other floor plan.
So you had poured in place concrete, and then you had metal. You had your framing, and then you put metal on top of it.
Can you see that drawing there?
Yes.
The storm shelter section?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got vertical and horizontal steel in the concrete wall. It's got its own footing. And then the ceiling are 2x8s with over the 2x8, you put down a 14 gauge steel sheet, attaching it, as you can see, with the 3-inch screws. And then there is 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood on top of that. And it's separated from the roof trusses.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Did you do anything special for ventilation and electrical?
No, did not. If anything, I would have changed in it would be to put in a through wall grate for ventilation. Again, it was more a matter of where do you go in a tornado event. Tornadoes usually last a few minutes, and they're as they're approaching your house, and then they're gone. So it wasn't a matter of worrying about where somebody's going to be for days or for hours and hours because it's above grade. Everything would be blown away. So that's the only thing we did not do. Now the detail would be the same on all 4 sides of that storm room, with a concrete header over the door.
Speaking of doors, what did you do for that?
Steel door and hollow metal frame. So
Now,
the frame is embedded in the concrete.
Now, how would you handle the mechanicals? Like, would there normally be an air conditioning duct going into that if you use it as a closet? And I think that also requires a return air. So how do you handle that situation? Because you don't want a hole in the ceiling, do you?
No. I actually didn't worry about it. They may have put a supply in there because it's an interior room. Return air, excuse me, we did not worry about a return air out of that room.
Well, it looked like you had a mechanical closet there. So, I mean, putting something
Right
through
next
the
to
wall would have been really handy.
Yeah, I don't remember if they ended up putting one in or not. It would have been easy, but I know they weren't real happy with having to put the ductwork, which they put in the slab. They weren't real happy about having to go around that room under the slab.
Now, rather than formed and poured concrete walls, everything we do down in South Florida is reinforced concrete block.
Yeah. Then you
So
can probably,
was there a discussion there? I mean, I'm sure you guys have concrete block in Ohio too.
Yeah,
sure.
You blinked out, so I didn't hear what you said. I heard we actually, and then you went quiet for a while. What was the question?
Whether or not we thought about using concrete block, reinforced concrete block walls.
And see, I
no.
like the continuous idea more than the block, because each one of those joints is not easy, but subject to.
Yeah, in concrete block, you would still run your reinforcing and fill the core solid.
Yeah.
It could have been done either way.
Okay.
They actually, although it's a slab on grade, if I'm not mistaken, well, it's a block wall foundation, the rest of the house, as you can see there to the right side.
Oh, so Mason did show up somewhere along the line.
Yes. But it was determined that was decided that was the way that they wanted to go.
Has it been proven?
Luckily, no.
Good.
House is still standing around it, is what you're saying.
The house was built out in the middle of farmland. There wasn't a tree within 200 yards.
Sounds like heaven to me.
No hills, flat land. It was open like that. The easiest ones to do are in a basement, but you have to get to the basement. And like I said, this gentleman was paraplegic, and there was no reason to put it over a basement anyway.
Yeah, Kara says in the chat that if you put a storm room in, you're never going to need it anyway. So
I was going to say the same thing. If you're prepared, you'll never need it. But yeah,
well, it's kind of like having a jack in your car or flares in your car. If you got them in your car, you'll never need them.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, where you located that storm room was convenient for the closet, I'm sure. But it was, adjacent to an outside wall. Does it really matter? I mean, I looking at the houses across the street from me, it was like you could have put it anywhere in the house and there was just no house left. So
yeah, with a concrete enclosure like that, it could have been any place in the house. Absolutely any place. But again, we needed the space for a closet anyway.
Yeah, that's why, I've always kind of imagined my powder rooms being storm rooms, or at least that's where, we got our hurricane, our tornado watch warnings. We threw all of our provisions into the powder room and was ready to run in if needed.
Yeah. Well, they tell you to go to an interior room, preferably a bathroom, an interior bathroom, and get in the tub and throw blankets over you. That's what that's generally what they'll tell us around here when there's a tornado warning. And some people take the tub and fill it full of water so they have water when the water goes out. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But
we do that for hurricanes.
Yeah, you take a small bathroom and you take at least two people, plus animals, plus whatever you bring in there with you for storm supplies, anything from your computer to your primary files you might need for insurance or whatever, because it gets blown away. If you have a storm bag with you, then you throw that in the room, and blankets and pillows for the just in case. It's something tornadoes are just so unpredictable. They can come up, not like hurricanes that it's coming. But the tornadoes, they'll show up and they'll go away as fast as they go across the landscape.
Hey, Mike, can you stop sharing your screen?
Absolutely.
With those of you in tornado area, how do you, like hurricanes, we plan, then we get so sick of them because they don't know where they're going. But like, for tornadoes, I don't even know how to ask the question. There's no way to plan for that kind of wind.
No, there isn't. We had a tornado in Dayton Memorial Weekend about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There were 14 tornadoes that took the same path in 20 minutes, and they traveled 20 miles. The lowest was an F0, the highest was an F4. It wiped out 2 towns, and it went through an urban area, which was really odd. And it came from the northwest, which was really odd. They usually travel from southwest to northeast, but it hit in the evening, and it was pretty intense. It took out around 6,000 buildings. They traveled for 20 miles.
What do you do differently in your build for those areas? Is there anything? Because
generally no. There is a program called Fortified Homes.
Yeah.
The Fortified Home program, I think, was initiated out of Tampa a few years back.
Yeah.
And it had it discusses the issues with tornadoes, and it calls out different anchors and hangers and connectors and all these other things.
Yeah.
The Habitat affiliate did one fortified home in Xenia, which was literally almost wiped off the face of the earth back in '74 with an F5 tornado. All the additional pieces and parts would total up about $9,000. And that was for a small 1-story home. But
here we have to build almost to the gold standard of fortification. And then Steve and I both, I know Steve, so I don't know you other guys, sorry about that. But like we build to that level, and then it's not that much more for them to get their gold certification. But it's what we're kind of required to, what we should be doing, being in the level of home that we design. But
now, in your homes down there,
excuse me,
what wind zone do you design to? Are you in the 140 mile an hour wind zone?
140, 150. Yeah, okay. Depends on the level of home and how much. Yeah,
we're basically in the 90 to 110.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to use that kind of criteria too. The controversy on doing fortified homes came up when we did the Habitat house, was because it was in the urban area and there were houses around it. And what do you do about the flying debris?
Yeah, we have to worry about that too. Flood and flying and floating. Yeah.
Yeah. Cars and trucks and all the other things.
And people put in illegal things. Yeah.
The F5 tornado that hit that city of Xenia in '74, there was a freight train going through town at the time. It took the engine off the track and moved it 200 yards.
Oh my goodness.
So, how do you figure what to do with that?
No.
You're muted, Steve.
Could we touch it? Can I get y'all's opinions on, because we do have hurricanes, we have waterspouts, we have tornadoes. Do you guys have an opinion of a safe house on a piling house?
Ah,
A safe room.
safe
Oh,
room on a piling house.
Thanks.
Well, you know, you're building on piers. You're building block piers and concrete tie beams. You're building block walls above those piers, right? Structure wise, you structure it for carrying a safe room, a storm room.
But like, should it be like what I was thinking is like, do you have the pilings for a safe room separate from the rest of the system on the interior? Say, do you build the elevator shaft like a safe room somehow? Just like thinking way outside of the box for a panic situation. Because like you all have mentioned, we do get forever time with hurricanes.
Well, I don't know. I don't deal with that too much, but just as somebody that lives in the Midwest, but I've done homes in Florida. If you've got the force of the rushing water underneath that structure and you build an elevator type shaft going down to hold up the safe room, you're kind of creating a wall. So, engineering wise, you could do about anything you needed to do, I would imagine, whether it's steel columns, whether it's concrete columns right underneath that room. Engineering wise, I'm sure that there's a way to do it.
Let me break in here.
Go ahead.
And ask Larry. Larry posted a link to a resource, and he also mentions FEMA P361, which I have queued up ready to show everybody too. But Larry, what is it that you posted here in the chat for us to look at? Nope, you're muted, Larry. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay now?
Yes.
Well, I think that was probably one of the most comprehensive guides that I ran across. It was multiple pages long, but it covered just about everything. Except, I really didn't look at it with the vision of anything that is it Pamela?
Yes.
Was talking about something on piles. That's almost like some kind of a pod that you would need that floats. I don't know how that would work.
Well, a lot, but our hurricanes. I'm sorry, you guys. Our tornadoes come. They come during hurricanes, but they also come before and they come after. So it's really whenever a big hurricane's coming, they make you evacuate. But the hurricanes come before. As they're hitting Steve and coming up my way, then that's when we start getting all the hurricane warnings.
Well, you make a good point though, Pamela, and that is if you're out on a barrier island and your house is up on stilts anyway, the reason for the stilts is a storm surge.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be asked to evacuate the island.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a need for a storm room in a house that is not going to be occupied during a storm?
There is for people that don't leave, paraplegics, people that are indisposed, older people that are by themselves and won't leave their house, flying debris. If like, for instance, we all know how quickly that one went from a 1 to a 4 that hit you guys this year. Florence, none of us expected her to hang around as a 1 for 3 days and flood our whole entire area. My house is 1882 and it's flooded 3 times and once was Florence, and I'm not on the coast. So, it's those kind of situations. plus people, it's also to me, the storm room can also be a panic room, because I'm asked to design panic rooms. And then I was doing this one house for a high government official that needed to be able to get his family protected quickly in a bad event. And so I had to design something like that. But that was more of a panic room with a tunnel. So I don't know. You guys are smart. I just wanted some more feedback. I'm going to read this P361. I've never paid attention to that.
Well, the P361 is primarily for commercial buildings. Like if you wanted to turn a school into a storm shelter or a gymnasium or a library. The one that I've got queued up here is P320, which is the FEMA's brochure that they put together on safe rooms for houses. It's about 100 pages long. It's one of the most comprehensive resources that I found. There's also ICC 500.
Okay.
But ICC 500 talks about all the details, the specifications. It's all written like a building code. It doesn't have illustrations. So it'll explain to you how to build things just like the building code does, but it won't have a drawing that shows you how to put it together, so to speak. So here, it goes through this brochure, talks about, how to size it based on how many people are going to be in the room. But here's what really got my attention. And there was, on page 11, where is that? There it is. There's like the diagram of all the major hurricanes from 1950 to 2019.
Yeah, so it's got Hazel on there. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hardly see any ocean through it. But here's what I really liked was when you get down to the end of the document, they have actual 24 by 36 drawings. That, bear with me here. I'm having trouble grabbing a hold of the scroll bar. There we go. It starts here with a title page, and then it has all your abbreviations and specifications, and then gets into different scenarios. This one here is the concrete block scenario with a framed ceiling, and then it's also got a concrete ceiling. It shows a similar detail like Mike was showing, where the block would go down to a foundation with a floating slab inside. It also shows the detail for a monolithic. This is the one that would be like what Mike designed, showing the cast in place concrete, but it has a concrete lid. And then they have an option for EFIS. Is that? No, ICF.
Okay.
Where you would build it out of styrofoam. This one is how to build it out of wood. And then alternatives for CIP foundation, CMU foundation, how to do it in a corner. How to do the sheathing on exterior walls, the ventilation detail. So what I've done is I've taken this document. I believe that government documents are kind of like immune from copyright. So I have posted that in our Designer Docs library.
Okay.
So when you go to the Designer Docs, you want to open the folder that says Design Drawing Tools, and you'll see the FEMA Taking Shelter from the Storm P320 brochure. This is just an example illustration, but click here to download it.
That is seriously interesting reading to me, and I know I'm weird, but I can't wait to read that. That's cool.
There's a lot of information in there. They have, different 3 or 4 different floor plan layouts and the pros and cons for putting the room in each of the different areas of the floor plan. I don't remember reading anything about houses on stilts.
I know. It's really, when I got this email, I was like, I wonder if, and because it's almost impossible, but then that's why I asked Michael, if there were extra methods that you do for tornadoes. Tornadoes just, it just seems impossible. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
And in this situation, it's an emergency situation, oh, I'll be fine. Oh my gosh, I'm not fine,
Well, it would seem to me that you could arrange 4 pillars down underneath that would be the 4 corners of the storm room. When you look at the size of the closet that Mike had on his floor plan, that would be big enough for a storage room underneath that you could just design with blowout walls.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then, you just pour a concrete slab on top of the pillars, and that's the floor of your storm room, and you run all your joists in different directions to keep it as its own little separate structure. You would just need to make sure that inside the homeowners know that they should have one of those rope ladders they can drop out, because open the door and there's nothing left,
Who else thought of Looney Tunes? Come on, raise your hand. Everybody, we all thought of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Coyote, yeah.
Larry, go ahead and jump in.
Well, the one thing that I've seen, and it's not been talked about, was don't get in your car. Okay, that's the very worst thing you can do.
You mean like in the garage? Don't get in your car.
Don't get in your car at all. Don't get out on the highway. Stay away from your car. Okay, because you don't know where the storm really is, and so I've heard of many people getting killed in their car trying to leave the storm, and they run into the storm. So do not get in your car. Now then, I haven't heard the word come up, and it's a standard word to me, but it's kind of an old word. It's called cellar. Okay,
cellar,
a root cellar, and so
cellar,
you dig it in, it's bermed up, and you've got the door that comes up, and people keep potatoes or whatever. But because it's bermed up, a heavy rain or downpour is not going to come in, and you can latch the door down quite nicely, even though it does open out. But it's outside the house, and so you don't have to worry about any of that. And it's an old thing.
But Larry, it is outside the house.
It is outside the house.
That seems to be the key. It's not attached to the house. Yeah.
No.
General consensus is
when a tornado is approaching, and you've got the rain that is preceding it, and the hail that usually is preceding it, and you have the wind that is preceding it, it's awful difficult to get a family to get up and get out, and it's always at the middle of the night. Get up, get out, go run out in the yard to get down in the hole. That's the downside of doing those. You could buy those. You could basically buy them pre-built, and they dig a hole and they put them in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these don't go in the ground, but these I found online at Lowe's, pre-made. They range anywhere from like $4,000 to about $12,000.
Wow.
There's a lot of military around me, and they buy the big thick containers, and they'll bury them with a berm with it way above the BFE. Yeah.
It looks like this one here, the above ground exterior, this round one, you could use that as a smoker during the summer, or there's got to be an opportunity there somewhere.
Has to be.
Of course, it would just be my luck. I'd have a fire going. I would have a brisket going for 6 hours while the storm's on coming.
Well, it does look like a smoker.
It does, yeah. But yeah, that's that is the bottom line though is that and we laugh about it, but Mike accomplished that, and that's a dual use where you're not wasting the space. It's just something that's there if you need it, but it's being used continuously throughout the year for something else.
I think the other part with a shelter is you got to think about what you're really going to be sheltering from.
Exactly.
And how many people you have to put in that shelter. That the P320 that you showed, Steve, that's the newer version of what I had was from 1999.
I suspected that was the case.
Yeah. And it talks, that's almost like the first page. Decide what you really want it to do. And, and then you move on from that point. I mean, luckily we don't have to worry about the flooding from hurricanes in Ohio, but the tornadoes are those are the harder part. Luckily, we don't have to build the bomb shelters anymore. At least
for now.
For now, yeah.
We have a lot of those in Wilmington. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, when Dayton, Ohio was got Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, and it was a strategic air command base. So they had a couple dozen B-52s flying around all day, every day. And, they figured, right, if the something was going to happen, you go to the bomb shelter,
Yeah.
Stupid things, kids would climb underneath their desk or go out in the hallway and cover your head. Or you had a bomb shelter you went to. And of course, then again, why would you want to come up? What would you find? But go back to the beginning when you were talking about the storm shelter and what do you want it to do. If you want to have a storm shelter that after a hurricane you have someplace safe and secure to be without having to leave your home, that's one way. If it's a storm shelter for tornado, and that would be for a brief period of time, but I would imagine that in the coastal areas where you have more hurricanes, you want someplace that if you had to stay there for a while, you would want some sort of water, some sort of sewer, some sort of electric and ventilation. So when you look at that P320, you've probably got some limitations there that FEMA will have put out that says these details are only good for this size room. And then after that, it's up to you. Of course, then again, they probably put some other verbiage in there that says, don't come after us if it fails.
Sure.
Don't you put that in verbiage on your plans too?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to everything I say, but don't hold me accountable. No, just kidding.
General notes, end of the general note says, do not scale drawing, just make look like picture.
Read my mind. Yeah.
Well, a bomb room, that is, that's almost funny to me because, I grew up in a Cold War city, Amarillo, Texas. The longest runway in the world, okay, has a tunnel that goes straight to NORAD. Largest strategic air command in the world. Like Mike was talking about, B-52s all the time. So, but a storm room, or teaching you to go down in the school to jump down and cover your head. Hey, if there's a nuke, hey, you're gone. It doesn't make any difference where you are. Okay, and my contention is that no one will ever pull the nuclear trigger. If they do, the whole world is gone. The entire world is gone.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I'm 45 minutes from Camp Lejeune, so yeah.
So I have seen some real devastating things. Wichita Falls. Okay, now we're not talking about a trailer park that got hit. We're talking about one that hit dead center in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is, a sizable city. And I went through there, and it was just blocks and blocks of slabs. But the strange thing, I saw all the bottom plates were still there, and it was just like a sea of toilets, because
Really?
they're,
Installed.
they're
The toilets were still installed.
they were, you bolt them to the slab, so
See, that's something to learn from, though. And as bad as the war is, I was looking at how they constructed their shelters. Picking that apart. So
well,
that's something, isn't it?
oh yes,
From the toilet.
Yes, it was crazy to see those. And then I saw a building that what used to be a huge bank, and the only thing left was the little drive-through area before they had a lot of tube tellers. It was just like a 8x8 block, a brick and block building, and it's standing, and the whole big building is gone. So size did make a difference. If you were big, you're going away. If you were small, you had a chance. I went to Sweetwater. That's kind of like the wind capital. And whenever I showed up, I saw they don't like to say the telephone pole, a utility pole that had like a water hose that had run through it. Well, really what happened was the grain of the pole opened up as all this debris is flying around, and a water hose happened to go through this pole, and then it closed up, and it was a water hose stuck through a utility pole. So they're so devastating you just can't imagine. And when you get miles and miles down the road, you see sheet metal and everything else, in the trees. You just know that how bad it was. So it's something that people should really consider.
That's a great line to end it on today, Larry. Thank you. We're at the top of the hour. I've got the takeaways here. Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope that those in the audience have enjoyed it. I know there's been a lot of chat going on. It's hard for me to kind of like listen and read at the same time. They say we can multitask, but I haven't learned that one yet. But here's my takeaways. Number one, we are never going to design houses. Well, I can't say never, but we're most likely never going to design houses that are going to withstand tornadoes. So thinking about putting a storm room inside, or a safe room inside the house, is an important thing. Number two, Mike, that wall section, are you willing to share that with me so that I can turn it into a DWG and we can put that in our CAD detail library? Thank you. Number three, if you can, make the storm room dual use. Bathroom, closet, any kind of interior room that presumably doesn't have a window in it. Number four, swing the door in so that if you're on stilts, install a rope ladder on the inside, or one of those inflatable slides like they have on the airplanes maybe. Number five, FEMA P20 or 320. P320 is the document that has been published since, I think it was updated last in 2020 or 2021. That's available for us in the Designer Docs library. Just hit the drawing tools folder. And then number six, if you design your storm room to have a toilet in it, you should put a seat belt on it, because toilets don't blow away.
Or strap yourself to the bottom. Oh, that's funny.
All right. Well, again, thank you.
One thing for people to noodle over is like retrofit. How would you retrofit a safe room? I know I love doing this, and I'm sorry, but like I had to throw that out right at the end, but how would you if somebody's buying a home, think about how to retrofit?
That's a great question, and let's move that to our Discord channel because, like I mentioned in the beginning, if we go too far over our hour, we'll start messing with the people who need the CE credits and the way our certificates are issued. So
yeah, no, I get it.
That's a great.
I mean, I'm sure all of us are thinking of a million different things, and we could go on for hours and hours. But now,
following this same theme, though, join us next month on the third Tuesday of December, whatever day that is, because the other inspiration that I've had from these storms lately is the flooding that happened in Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about how we can fix that in the sense of not only just designing the houses up off the ground, but I've reached out some of the companies that have been partners with us in the past that build flood vents and different ideas. So be thinking about flood protection over the next 4 weeks, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, everybody.